Hi there, it's Jim here. We've done a couple of live streams looking in detail at some aspects of exam technique for paper 3, but I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes just outlining the structure of the paper and some final top tips before you have a go at the paper. Firstly, let's look at the typical structure. What we would normally expect, it's obviously a case study paper with the case study provided in a separate insert, a couple of pages of text and some appendices, perhaps with some charts and some data. And for the case study, there should be 6 questions, 2 12-mark questions, question 1 and question 2, 12 marks each. And these are just analysis questions, just like 9-mark questions, no evaluation needed, just like the 9-mark questions you've done in paper 1 and paper 2. Next up, question 3 and question 4 are 16-mark evaluation questions, just like the evaluation questions you did in paper 2. No difference there, but obviously based on the case study. And finally, 2 longer extended response questions. Question 5, which is what I would call a decision or recommendation question. This is similar to one of the questions, the 16 markers in paper 2. It's just 4 more marks where you might be asked to choose between 2 options or to express a judgment as to whether a decision was a good one or not. And we looked in detail at one of those in our second live stream. And finally, question 6. Well, this should be, if past papers are a guide, a 24-mark open question. So an any business or business question. And we answer that in just exactly the same way as we answer the 16-mark open questions in paper 2. There's just a few more marks available, so treat them exactly the same. Well, just looking at last year, this is the 2003 data. You can see that paper 3 is a challenging paper. Students are tired, and also perhaps because they over-answer the 12-mark questions, they run out of time. So time management is crucial. These were the average marks per question in 2023, and this continues a trend in recent years where paper 3 is the lowest mark or the lowest scoring paper of all 3, 46.5 out of 100. That's a lot of marks being lost. And you can see actually that students do pretty well on the 2 12 markers, perhaps because they're writing too much, leaving themselves under time pressure for the 16 mark questions. And well, look at the numbers for question 5. 8 out of 20 on average. Question 6, 10 out of 24, well below half marks. And so it's really important as we go through our final top tips that time management plays a key role here. Do not over-answer the 12-mark questions. Well, let's just finally go through my top tips for success. These aren't the only tips, but these are just things that we've mentioned in Grade Booster and in our live stream, so hopefully might be useful for you. Firstly, don't forget this is a case study paper. The context is provided for you. All the information you need for the answers is provided in the case study, so use it. There's an expectation that you'll be using it. If the question specifically asks you to refer, for example, to a particular appendix or appendices, please do so. But most importantly, don't just regurgitate or repeat and copy out the case study. That's known as copying out the case study. Well, that's not application. So try to use the information, perhaps the situation, perhaps manipulate some data, calculate a ratio, compare some numbers, spot a trend, and use that to support your arguments. I think a good technique with the case study is don't open it until you've looked through the 6 questions. If you know what the questions are, that makes it a little bit more efficient and easier to spot the key information that you might be able to use to support your arguments. So start with the questions first before you dive into the case study. Secondly, as I've mentioned already, don't get bogged down in the 12 markers. They're just like 9 markers. The only difference is 3 extra marks. There's no evaluation, so don't write a conclusion. You don't need them. And I'm pretty sure last year in 2023, both 12 markers were singular rather than plural, so one argument could have got you all 12 marks. I would be looking maximum 10 minutes each for the 12 markers. Don't get too bogged down in them. Use them as a nice warm-up to get into questions 3, 4, 5, and 6. And talking about order, I know there are some people out there who come up with a really clever way of answering paper 3. I think it's nonsense. There's a reason why the examiner puts the slightly shorter and perhaps easier questions at the start to warm you up and get you into the case study. So I would do the questions in the order in which they appear. And the good benefit of that is that you can often use the insights, for example, the calculations or the data or some other aspect of the case to support your arguments in question 5 and question 6, where we're having to make a decision or consider an open question. But of course, that still means time management is crucial. So if you allow 20 minutes for the case study and reading the questions, that leaves you 100 minutes for 100 marks. So if you work on the basis for a mark a minute, then hopefully, if you keep to time, that should leave you at least 50 minutes for those last 2 questions and to give them a good go. And lastly, really important, and this is a key feedback from the AQA examiners for paper 3 last year, evaluation is key. No evaluation needed for the 12 markers, but questions 3, 4, 5 and 6 definitely require a judgment, just like you wrote in the 16-mark questions in paper 2, just like you wrote, same structure, in the 25-mark questions in paper 1. So take some time to make sure that your evaluation directly answers the question. For example, if it's a recommendation, which option? Make sure your evaluation adds value, perhaps by bringing in extra application. And also, don't forget, it needs to be supported by your arguments and be balanced. That's why the AGIM method or the 5Ws method is a really good way of making sure that your evaluation is as strong as it can be. That's the thing to focus on with this case study paper. So take some time, leave enough time to make sure you write really good judgments to each of questions 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then when you finish question 6, that's it. Turn the paper over and congratulate yourself on putting in a big effort and completing all 3 papers for AQA A-Level Business. I wish you all the best. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for you, thinking of you, and looking forward to hearing how you get on. Cheers.